I don't think there's an Australian family at the moment, certainly not one in Western Sydney, that could say that they're better off today than they were 15, 18 months ago when Mr Albanese was first elected. The decisions they've made are making it harder for families, making it harder for regions, and as we know, as electricity prices continue to go up, families and small businesses are the ones who are suffering. And if you think power prices have gone up significantly already under Labor, just be assured that your power bills will continue to go up exponentially under Mr Albanese and Mr Bowen, because they've got a renewables-only policy, which, as the regulator warns, is likely to result in a disruption to power supply and a continued increase in people's power prices. And Australians just can't afford this Labor government. So I really worry about what's happening in our country and the economy at the moment. There are lots of reports out about the economy slowing, and I think Mr Albanese is distracted by all sorts of other issues, including The Voice. And over the course of the last 15 months, he's prioritised everything but Australian families, small businesses and, in particular, manufacturing. I want manufacturing to grow in this country. I don't want to see it have to go offshore, where we'll lose the Australian jobs and we'll lose that economic activity. I'll just say, in relation to some of the scenes that we've seen out of Adelaide and elsewhere, where people are now protesting against those who are gathering peacefully to either argue no in this case or argue yes. We live in a free country. We treasure our democracy. It's absolutely sacrosanct to our way of life, and I don't tolerate for 1 minute Australians being abused by other Australians in those sorts of rallies. If you have something to say in our country, in any debate, in any political forum, you say it in a peaceful way. We shouldn't be surprised, though, because the Prime Minister has set our country up to be divided. He's been warned for months and months and months that he was embarking on a path right up to October 14 and likely beyond, which is splitting our country in two. We said to the Prime Minister that he should not proceed with this referendum because Australians haven't got the detail that they require to make an informed judgment. And I think that's why Australians are angry at the Prime Minister at the moment, because they're being asked to vote on something that won't be designed until after the election takes place. I mean, what sort of Prime Minister says to the Australian public, I'll explain to you what it is you're voting for after you vote? There's a 6-month consultation and design process after October 14. Why couldn't that have been done over the course of the last 6 months so that people knew what they were voting for? And I think the Prime Minister is putting the country in a very precarious position at the moment, both economically and in terms of the way in which he's dividing the country. If the question being put to the Australian public at the moment was, do you support recognition of Indigenous Australians in our Constitution, there would be 70 or 80% support for it. But he's taken a deliberate decision not to do that. And I think a lot of Australians are starting to understand that this Prime Minister is either all talk and no action, or when he does act, he acts to divide the country and to drive up power prices and drive up inflation. And that's something that the coalition will fight against, and all the way up to the next election, until we win the next election, we're going to be working hard to stop the bad decisions of the government and to get our country back on track after the election in 2025.